Says that one of the signs of the Day of Judgment is that the Arabian Peninsula will become it will become like garden.
Greening the deserts. Have you heard of the program Greening the Deserts? Yeah, it's a permaculture
maybe
project.
there is some interesting overlap there.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead. You were saying.
So there were a lot of people who were coming together in America, Vietnam veterans, people who've been taking psychedelics and were seeing the world in a completely different way to the mainstream, environmental activists, and they were all trying to come together in gatherings to effect some kind of social change. And then a Native American came and said, look, we've got a tool. This is a tool that was apparently used to club animals in Kenya, but was gifted to me from a rainbow brother, and we use it as a talking stick.
I thought you were going to use it to hurt someone.
No. It used to be used to hurt someone. I'm an animal rights activist, so I'm aware of the issue.
On this point, I totally want to agree with a lot of the things that you've said here.
Yeah.
Because I think that a lot of the stuff that you said is very much in line with the Islamic ethic. I'll give you a few examples. You talked about sharing food. There's a prophetic saying of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ where he talks about the blessings of sharing food from one pot. So in other words, not eating from your own plate, but eating from your brother's plate. So this idea of sharing food and all these things is very, very important in the Islamic ethic. And the Quran talks about this very much so, and stresses the idea of feeding the orphans in particular, because they're socially deprived people who don't have the same kind of level of independence or financial stability than the rest of us. So the orphan is much repeated in the Quranic discourse, talking about feeding the orphan, all those things. It's all about animal rights. There's two interesting hadiths which come to mind. One of them, hadith is a prophetic saying, so these are the things that the Prophet Muhammad said. So one of them is the hadith where he talks about a woman going to the hellfire for torturing a cat, because she was torturing a cat. Obviously, for someone to torture an animal, this shows that they have the deepest sense of evilness, if you like. They are all evil. And so this person was deemed as an inhabitant of the hellfire because of her torturing of a cat. On the other hand, you have a prostitute who, obviously in Islamic tradition, prostitution is a social aberration, is a moral aberration. And so a prostitute who fed or who used her shoe to put water in, a shoe of a dog, her shoe for a dog to drink, and that rescued her from the hellfire. So I think we're raising awareness on a very important topic here from an Islamic perspective, because we're talking about animal rights, and there's a hadith that talk about, if there's for example an animal, that you shouldn't have more than one person on a certain animal because it would be too much for them to bear, and so on. So if you look at the ahadith, the prophetic sayings on animals, you'll be surprised to realize that a lot of what you're saying is already mimicked, obviously, in the Islamic Quranic discourse in particular, and obviously in the life of the Prophet Muhammad and the actions.
This is what I'm coming to, actions, you see.
Go ahead.
I do actions, like, for example, last weekend I was at a save. So a save is when we go to slaughterhouses and we slow the vehicles down. And the reason we do it is because we want to make a connection with the animal, to look the animal in the eye and see that there's another being there, another being that's not a commodity, another being that feels pain.
So you want to go and attack the vegetarianism thing? You want to bring that in now?
Anyway, I was very happy because actually for the first time within 2 years, the policeman was actually asking the drivers to slow down and have a care for the humans, rather than prioritise the obstruction of a private road.
Okay.
And for me, that's a big turnaround. It's taken 2 years for us to do that. Okay. With regard to pots, this year at the Rainbow Gathering in the Ashdown Forest, our pots got nicked by the army. Okay. It was a peaceful gathering of people coming together out in nature, singing to each other in communion, we've had constant harassment from authority figures.
Okay.
As a result, a lot of mothers in particular are put off coming with their children.
Right.
This is my living culture.
Yes.
Yeah. The same authorities are engaged in promoting a system of food which is based on monoculture, whether that's within the animal kingdom or the vegetable kingdom. So we've had the Green Revolution, which has basically meant third world countries producing crops for animals in this country. In 1993, I did my dissertation on soybean production in the Amazon basin, and I was also working in the shanty towns.
It's funny you say that. When I went to Ghana,
Yeah.
I saw how the children were taking out like soya beans and stuff like that in the areas there. And I thought, because you know what I thought on this point actually, it was quite ironic. Because you know, obviously animal rights activists like yourself, you talk about like problems, you know, and I would agree with you, right? In the production, the slaughtering and production, you know, of animal products, whether it be for consumption, for human consumption, or whether it be for like whatever it may be for, yeah. But when I saw these kids and you know the soya beans and all that kind of thing, I thought there's also an issue with this, because obviously a vegan or a vegetarian has to be cognizant of the fact that their vegetable products are coming from a system of exploitation as well. Yeah, from the developing
monoculture. But 95%, 95% of that soybean was destined for animal fodder. In Western countries.
At any rate, it's still being plucked by children and all that. So how do we? Because I appreciate the fact that you're concerned with animal health. But there's always going to be a trade-off somewhere, isn't there?
Well, let me tell you, in that safe slaughterhouse, it's not like an industrial slaughterhouse. So it's not lorry drivers who are coming; it's the farmers that are coming with their trailers on the back. Yeah. So we get to have conversations with them, and they say this is down in Sussex. So Sussex is a hilly terrain. It used to be the swampland. The Romans wouldn't go there. Yeah. They say that the terrain is not conducive to growing vegetables. But just down the road, the National Trust have taken on no-dig method. Have you heard of no-dig method? Okay. So no-dig method is the hippie method, which is basically following the natural method of growing. So you don't use a plough. The no-dig method is saying that the plough is, and always was, destructive to the soil. But the tractors have simply magnified that process.
I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not an expert on how this could be the case.
Well, the thing about the case, the reason why is you have the fungal layer underneath, which provides nitrogen for the plants, and when you plough, you rip that up. So you're messing with the structure. No, what I say to these farmers is, you say you can't grow vegetables there, but down the road at Sissinghurst, the National Trust place, where 300,000 people go, and they see this huge sign that's saying 6.6 tons of vegetables off an acre and a half of ground. Now those same farmers who are having livestock, they maybe get 300 kilos of the same area of ground.
Why is it problematic to sell the...
Why is it problematic? Because it destroys the fungal layer, and monoculture.
Why is that problematic?
Because it means that in monoculture you have to import fertilizers. Also, you have to use a lot of water. Like in America, over 50% of water in America is used for agriculture, and most of that agriculture is animal agriculture.
Yeah, that's another thing. Obviously, the Prophet Muhammad, he was telling us, you know, to conserve water as well. Even when we do ablution and all those things. Yeah, so we share your concerns. I mean, I'm happy that you've actually given us this education, because there's lots of things you've taught me that I did not know before you said that. I guess what I'm saying is, you know, there's a lot of common ground here between what we want to do with the environment and what you guys are already doing. I want to make a proposition for you, so that we can maybe get something out of this, right? What would be nice, I'm sure a lot of research has already been done. Maybe you can create in bullet point form, right? And obviously, not everyone might agree with what you're saying. In bullet point form, what you think are the main concerns from an ecological, perspective, right?
Yeah.
Environmental perspective.
Yeah.
So you say, okay, these are what we believe are the main concerns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And what we can do is you can send that to me on email.
Yeah.
And we might do something that we can help you, promote that material. If we think, after consulting second parties or whatever, that what you're saying makes sense, then it makes sense for us to promote it as well.
Okay, well there's one thing. There's been environmental lobbying groups that have been going for a very long time. Now, groups like Greenpeace, for example, since 1990...
Not a political party.
No, but an environmental. Well, yeah, but they're connected with the environmental lobbying groups. They say that at the first Rainbow Gathering, Greenpeace was established.
Yeah. Okay.
So since 1992 and the Rio Summit, all the emphasis of environmental concern has been on energy and not consumption. Yeah. And so they've become politicized, these lobbying groups, and their lobbying has not had any avail. So the Extinction Rebellion is something different. It's saying we're not going to engage in advocacy, we're going to engage in non-violent disruption. Now, what I'm asking here is that Extinction Rebellion has been labelled as a white, middle-class, privileged rebellion. But for me, its base should be more than that. And the thing is, a lot of people in Speaker's Corner haven't even heard about it.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it.
Yeah,
what I was going to say to you is that, I'll be honest with you, right? From our more ethical perspective, we don't find that unless there are certain things in place that kind of disruption, especially from Muslims, right, would be enough.
Yeah, but
you know
but
what I'm talking about.
Look,
all right, so
I know what you're saying,
right,
but
so what I want to say to you is maybe from our perspective, I'll be frank with you, right?
Yeah.
A lot of stuff that you're saying makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
If you say, look, for instance, just raise awareness on these points, that's something potentially we could do.
All I'm asking, I'm not asking, and I'm aware of what you're saying. I used to work for the Refugee Council in the 90s, and in my work with the Rainbow Family, I've been in all sorts of environments. I was out in Bosnia, and I was in squats in Sarajevo, and the people there were saying, oh, I'm not, as a white person coming over here, I'm not necessarily going to listen to you about rainbow gatherings, because it sounds to me like something, a decadent symptom of American culture. But actually, we did have a gathering there, and Muslims and Christians came together. There was a Balkan cafe, and
what are the objectives, though?
The objective of the Rainbow Gathering?
Yeah. No,
well, I told you is to turn the land green again. That was the prophecy. We don't have any scripture.
All right, no problem. But we want to turn the land green as well.
Yeah. All I'm saying is I would like people from minorities to at least cover it, to come down with cameras,
so raising awareness,
to have cameras and to show it.
Well,
and
then we're doing a little bit of that for you right now, isn't it?
Yeah, and the people from Extinction Rebellion, on my invitation, because I also have, I'm not a fully signed up member of Extinction Rebellion. I have certain issues around around their structure and stuff like that. But I've invited them to come to Speaker's Corner. So next weekend, people will be coming with jackets with Extinction Rebellion on the back to engage in discussion. Okay. And I just find it interesting that having shut down the BBC, we come here, and here it's like outdoor BBC, isn't it? But it's minority voices. And I think it's important that these things are discussed in different forums.
Hopefully we've been a little bit more, welcoming than the BBC might have been,
No, the BBC pushed us out, and they've got these revolving doors.
Well, we're not going to push you out.
Right? No,
you're our guest here in this Speaker's Corner.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you very much for that informative session.
Okay, thank you very much, Mohammed. Appreciate it.
Can we have a thumbnail with the stick near his face? Can we just see the stick one more time? Come on.
This one? Yeah, this came from Bosnia, and like I say, it was used to club animals in Kenya, I believe.
Kenya?
The Rainbow Gathering is a tradition that comes from Native American, but there was a brother in Bosnia, he wrote the Rough Guide to Bosnia, and he gifted this to me on the eve of my partner's birthday. And it's funny because she was brought up in Kenya, so there's a kind of synchronicity there in this gift. And we don't use it for clubbing animals in the Rainbow Gatherings, we use it for communication. So we sit in circle, and each person has a right to speak without interruption. And then we have a feather attached to it. So when we, if we've got a question, when we we can take the feather out, ask that question, and people restrict themselves to that subject when they respond. And yeah, it's a form of, for me, it represents community sovereignty, and for me that's the only way that we can change the world, through bringing power back to community rather than it be invested in elites.
Maybe we'll have some more peace running.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay, bless, thank you. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah.